Ladies and gentlemen, what if I were to tell you that everything you think you know about who a narcissist ends up with is entirely mistaken? What if the reality is not about them finding someone better, but about you evolving into someone stronger? Today, we are going to explore a story that most people never get the chance to see. We are uncovering the truth behind the mask, the cycle they constantly repeat, and the unexpected victory that belongs not to the narcissist, but to the person who finally escaped. Please stay with me, because the truth you are about to hear will fundamentally change the way you see everything you have survived and everything you are currently becoming. The truth is that narcissists do not end up with their perfect match. They end up with whoever manages to maintain their illusion for the longest amount of time. And this realization reshapes the entire way we understand their relationships. Narcissists move through life wearing a heavy layer of emotional armor built from deep insecurity, a paralyzing fear of abandonment, and an overwhelming constant need for external validation. They are not searching for a partner in the way that healthy, grounded people do. They are not looking for compatibility, emotional depth, or a genuine, soulful connection. Instead, they are searching for a person who can hold up a mirror that reflects the specific image they want to believe about themselves. Their perfect match is not based on love at all. It is based entirely on illusion. The person they choose is simply someone who feeds that fragile illusion without questioning it. It is someone who does not yet see the cracks in the mask. It is someone who unknowingly confirms the narcissist's fantasy that they are special, superior, deeply desired, and always in the right. The moment that illusion is threatened, the moment a partner starts setting firm boundaries, asking for simple accountability, or noticing the inconsistencies in the narcissist's story, the narcissist begins to pull away emotionally, punish them, or look to replace them entirely. This does not happen because the relationship was inherently wrong, but because the illusion was interrupted. This is exactly why narcissists never end up with the strongest, most self-aware, or emotionally balanced people. Those individuals eventually see the truth for what it is. They outgrow the manipulation. They stop reacting to the drama, stop feeding the ego, and stop supporting the performance. Once the illusion finally breaks, the narcissist feels completely exposed and vulnerable. So they move on to someone new, not because that person is better, but because they are less aware of the game. In the end, the person a narcissist stays with is not chosen from the heart. They are chosen out of pure necessity. It is the necessity of keeping their fragile, manufactured identity alive. It is not real love they are trying to preserve. It is the illusion they simply cannot live without. And when you finally understand that narcissists choose people based on who can best maintain their illusion, you begin to see why their relationships never truly evolve. The truth is that a narcissist does not move from one meaningful partnership to another. They move from one repetitive emotional cycle to the next. This brings us to the heart of the second major point. They do not repeat relationships. They repeat patterns. A narcissist is not chasing love, personal growth, or emotional depth. They are chasing a fleeting feeling, a manufactured fantasy, and the high that comes from being idealized and deeply admired. They want the intense rush of being placed on a pedestal, the thrill of being viewed as extraordinary, and the immense comfort of being validated without a single question. And because they crave the same emotional result every single time, they recreate the same rigid emotional script with every new person they meet. It always starts with intense admiration, the kind that sweeps a new partner completely off their feet. The love bombing phase creates a dream, a perfect world made of beautiful promises and carefully crafted illusions. But just like in every previous situation, the moment reality starts to seep in, when the new partner begins to see their humanity, their flaws, and their inconsistencies, the script shifts. Devaluation begins. This involves blame, constant criticism, and emotional withdrawal. The narcissist feels betrayed not because of what was actually done to them, but because the illusion they depend on is fading once again. So they search for someone new, hoping that the next person will keep the fantasy alive for a little bit longer than the last one did. However, they are never actually seeking a different or better story. They are only seeking a delayed ending. This is the reason why every one of their relationships feels so eerily similar. This is why every partner they have had tells stories that echo one another. This is why the romantic history of a narcissist is nothing more than a long chain of repeated heartbreaks that they try to package as just bad luck. They are not building love. They are recycling illusions. And until they are willing to confront the painful truth within themselves, a truth they spend their entire lives running from, the cycle will continue no matter who happens to be standing beside them. Once you see that a narcissist is not repeating relationships, but is merely repeating the same tired emotional script, you begin to understand why nothing ever truly changes for them. At their core, they are not searching for connection. They are searching for control. This leads us directly into the third key point. A narcissist chooses comfort over connection and control over true intimacy. This is perhaps one of the most painful truths for anyone who has ever loved a narcissist. While you were offering your genuine heart. They were busy managing an image. While you were trying to build something real and lasting, they were working hard to ensure that nothing could ever threaten their emotional authority. Intimacy requires real vulnerability and the willingness to be truly seen with all of your flaws and your beauty. But for a narcissist, vulnerability feels like a grave danger. It exposes the deep cracks in their identity, the childhood wounds they have never healed, and the insecurities they work so incredibly hard to hide from the world. So instead of choosing a partner who invites authenticity, they choose someone who makes their world feel safer, someone who will not challenge them, will not question them deeply, and will not disrupt the illusion they need to survive. True emotional connection asks for accountability, honesty, and a two-way street of love and respect. But the narcissist's comfort lies in relationships where they can dictate the pace, structure the narrative, and maintain a very predictable level of emotional power. This is exactly why they feel so threatened by strong, independent partners. It is why they crumble when someone sees through their mask, and why they retreat as soon as the love gets real. Love requires depth, but control requires distance. When they are forced to choose, the narcissist always picks the path that keeps them protected, even if it leaves the relationship completely empty. So the cycle continues. They chase admiration instead of intimacy, ego instead of truth, and safety instead of growth. Every new connection becomes just another place where they hide rather than heal, simply because they are more afraid of being truly known than they are of being alone. When you realize that a narcissist always chooses control over intimacy, the next truth becomes impossible to ignore, because a relationship built on control cannot survive in the presence of someone who has finally awakened to their own worth. That brings us to our fourth point. A narcissist never ends up with the strong, awakened person who outgrows them. This is not because you were not good enough, or because you lacked something they desperately needed. It happened because your personal growth became the very thing that threatened the fragile world they had built. The moment you began to heal, to question the narrative, and to see the patterns clearly, the dynamic shifted. You stopped accepting the breadcrumbs they threw your way. You stopped absorbing the blame for things that were not your fault. And you stopped allowing their volatile moods to dictate your self-esteem. Whether you realized it at the time or not, that awakening made you someone they could no longer control. Narcissists fear strong partners because that strength exposes their own weakness. Confidence exposes their deep-seated insecurity. Emotional intelligence reveals their lack of emotional maturity. When you grow, you shine a bright light on truths they have spent a lifetime trying to bury. That light feels absolutely unbearable to them. It forces them to face the reality behind the illusion that they cannot love the way they pretend to. They cannot give the things they promise, and they cannot hold the power they once wielded over your heart. So instead of rising alongside you, they retreat from you. They seek someone who has not yet awakened, someone who still mistakes intensity for true love, and someone who still believes in the mask they are wearing. Your evolution disqualifies you from their cycle, not because you lost any value, but because you gained too much clarity. You became emotionally fluent in a language they refused to learn. You stepped completely out of the role they needed you to play in their life. Once you stop participating in their script, they simply cannot keep you in their story. In truth, your awakening is the very thing that ensures they never end up with you. It is also the very thing that frees you from ever needing to return to that chaos. When you step into that awakening, and when you finally rise above the toxic environment they kept you trapped in, something else becomes perfectly clear. It is a realization that shatters the false illusion that narcissists upgrade when they move on to someone else. The fifth and final point reveals a truth that people often struggle to believe. The narcissist's new supply is not an upgrade. It is simply a replacement for the illusion that has collapsed. You were never replaced because you lacked value or worth. You were replaced because you stopped playing the exact role they needed for their performance to continue. Narcissists do not seek better partners. They seek easier ones. They look for people who have not yet questioned the script, who still believe the grand gestures, who still fall for the initial charm, and who still mistake flattery for genuine love. To the outside world, the narcissist's new relationship may look perfect, exciting, or even enviable. But please remember what you now understand. Narcissists do not build new, meaningful connections. They just recycle the same storyline. What looks like an upgrade is simply the opening scene of a movie you have already watched. It is the same love bombing, the same intensity, the same empty promises, and the same emotional high that very quickly melts into the exact same confusion and pain. Now that you see this, you are free. You have the power to step forward into a life that is defined by your own growth, your own truth, and your own capacity for authentic love. You are no longer a character in their play, and you are certainly no longer a victim of their illusion. You are finally, truly moving toward a future that belongs entirely to you. They did not replace you with someone better. They replaced you with someone who does not yet see what you eventually saw for yourself. This is someone who will in time face the exact same disillusionment, the same manipulation, and the same exhausting cycle of idealization followed by devaluation. That is precisely why your healing journey is so incredibly powerful. You effectively broke the illusion. You stepped out of their control and finally moved from their fabricated world into your own personal truth. The new person is not living in a better reality than you were. They are simply living in an earlier chapter of the same book that you have already finished reading. A narcissist does not truly upgrade. They only reset the illusion, desperately hoping that this time it will last just a little bit longer, never realizing that the fundamental problem is not who they choose, but who they refuse to become. Once you understand that the new beginning a narcissist claims to have is nothing more than a recycled illusion, you begin to see the deeper underlying truth behind all of their choices. This brings us to the sixth major point, which reveals what really sits at the center of every new relationship they enter. The person a narcissist ends up with is simply someone who does not yet see the truth. This is not an insult to the new partner, but rather a reflection of where they currently stand in their own emotional journey. It is the same place where you once stood. It is a place filled with hope and innocence, a place where love is given openly. Trust is extended easily, and red flags are unfortunately mistaken for signs of passion. Narcissists do not choose their partners based on healthy compatibility. They choose them based on emotional readiness, or to be more accurate, emotional unpreparedness. They attach themselves to people who are still willing to believe in the fantasy, who are still vulnerable to charm, and who have not yet learned how to recognize manipulation when it is dressed up as romance. The new partner is not someone better than you. They are someone who still thinks they are entering into a beautiful love story rather than realizing they have signed up for a survival course. They believe the sweet words, the grand gestures, and the intense connection, completely unaware that these things are actually tools of control rather than truths of affection. They do not yet see the subtle manipulation. They do not see the emotional dependency that is already starting to form. They do not see how quickly all that adoration will turn into disappointment the moment they begin to express their own needs, set their own boundaries, or reveal their true, authentic self. This is the reason the narcissist clings to them so tightly at the beginning. It is not because the love is any deeper, but because the illusion finally feels safe again. The script is working, and the mask is once again believable. However, as time passes, the truth always finds a way to the surface. Just like you did, this new person will eventually start to feel the cracks, the confusion, the inconsistency, and the deep emotional exhaustion. They do not see the truth yet, but they will, because illusions are never meant to survive forever. They cannot survive with a narcissist, and they certainly cannot survive with a human heart that eventually begins to notice what is real and what is just an act. When you realize that the narcissist chooses people who have not yet seen the truth, it becomes even clearer why their relationships follow the same hollow pattern over and over again. This leads us to the seventh point, which flows naturally from everything we have uncovered so far. A narcissist does not build genuine partnerships. Instead, they build elaborate stages for their ego. To the outside world, it may certainly look like a real relationship. There are photographs, words, public gestures, and moments that mimic the appearance of love. But beneath those surface-level displays, there is no shared foundation, no mutual growth, and no emotional reciprocity to be found. What the narcissist is actually constructing is not a bond, but a platform. It is a carefully designed space where they can perform, impress, manipulate, and receive constant admiration without ever being challenged. The new partner does not know this yet. They believe they are entering into a real partnership, a connection filled with endless possibility and genuine excitement. Meanwhile, the narcissist is busily setting the scene, placing themselves directly in the spotlight, assigning roles to everyone around them, crafting complex narratives, and ensuring that the other person unknowingly becomes nothing more than a supporting character. Their sole purpose is to validate, to admire, to soothe, and to applaud, not to love in a healthy reciprocal way. This is why the illusion feels so incredibly powerful in the beginning. The narcissist is an expert performer. They know exactly how to build grand openings, dramatic entrances, emotional highs, and cinematic displays of romance. But just like any theatrical performance, it is simply not sustainable. They cannot stay in character forever. Eventually, real life enters the room, and with it comes the need for vulnerability, accountability, and compromise. All of the things that expose the hard limits of their emotional capacity. When the new partner begins needing something real, the stage lights start to dim. The narcissist withdraws, criticizes, or punishes because now the script is changing and they do not know how to act without having total control. This is why their relationships feel so intensely theatrical, because they are built on performance rather than partnership. The moment the audience stops applauding, the narcissist immediately starts looking for a new stage. When you finally see that the narcissist is not building a relationship, but is instead constructing a stage, the next truth unfolds almost effortlessly. Every stage needs an actor who does not know that they are actually in a play.